Good morning. It's Friday, September 19th, 2025. I'm meteorologist Andrew Pritchard taking a look at your Canadian Prairie weather story. Starting off with our bullet points here, I got to admit, we had a busted forecast across Alberta, western portions of Saskatchewan. This area right here kind of jumped too quick at a sudden model pivot toward a rainier outlook over the past 7 days. I had higher confidence across portions of eastern Saskatchewan into southern Manitoba, where we did see that rain there. We'll kind of analyze, compare the forecast with what really happened there. As we kind of look forward, though, the pattern over the next 7 days is not necessarily quiet across the prairie. We will have some fronts moving through, some areas of low pressure, some jet stream flow, but it's not very rainy at the end of the day. Over the next 2 weeks, not a ton of precipitation amounting from this across the prairie. We'll look at that. And then temperatures generally staying mild overall. We do, again, have some fronts passing through. We'll see some variation within those temperatures over the next 10 days. But the next 10 days overall, averaging, quite a bit, I say quite a bit, probably 4 to 5 degrees above average overall over the next 7 to 10 days. That, of course, degrees Celsius. Now, the last 7 days of precipitation, we saw 1 to 2 inches here across this corridor of eastern Saskatchewan into southwestern portions of Manitoba, but then completely dry here over the last week across much of Alberta into western Saskatchewan. And as I pull up the European model forecast from 7 days ago, for the next 15 days or so, check out the whiff here. I know that the next 2 weeks really is what was being shown here in this forecast, so it does run out through September 27th, which is still 8 days from now. But as I show you, the next 6, 7, 8 days are not especially rainy or especially wet across the prairie, even though we do have some flow and some disturbances moving through. So really kind of went kind of aggressively after this sudden pivot to a rainier forecast and talked about, the higher forecast confidence being right in this area. But it looked like as we went deeper into the forecast period, we would start to kind of lob some of this moisture westward back toward the Rockies. And that part of the forecast did not happen. As we take a look at what's going on right now, again, not a whole lot going on across the prairie as we get started here on Friday. We've got an area of low pressure here across kind of the upper Midwest of the United States, and we've seen some moisture kind of being lobbed up over the top of that one. So some light showers across portions of southern Manitoba this morning. And then we've got another upper level disturbance here kind of coming into British Columbia. And as I show you the radar in a moment, we got some showers associated with that as well. Got some moisture here from what was a tropical system here named Mario across the Pacific. Some of this moisture going to be lobbed across the Rockies here over the next 4, 5, 6, 7 days. Finally, bringing some relief to portions of the central and eastern Corn Belt in the U.S. You may have been hearing about the expanding drought across those areas. Now, again, looking at the radar, I mentioned some moisture here being kind of lobbed up over the north side of this area of low pressure into southern portions of Manitoba. Some showers across British Columbia, maybe moving into the Peace River, Grand Prairie area over the next 24 hours. And we'll see this area of low pressure move from west to east across the region over the next 72 to 96 hours, bringing at least some scattered showers to the region. We'll see that here with the NAM model. We'll kind of play this out through the weekend into early next week. If I go ahead and get this clicked right, I want to slow it down and go incrementally here. You'll watch the showers taper off over the next 24 hours across southern Manitoba. It'll be quieting down overnight into the day tomorrow. So this is your Saturday, pretty quiet, beautiful day across much of the prairie. Some clouds in Manitoba, but a lot of blue skies, a lot of sunshine across the prairie. We go into Saturday night, now Sunday morning. Here comes the area of low pressure from British Columbia, moving from west to east. Get some showers into portions of Alberta on Sunday. This is now Sunday night, and then we'll freeze it here as we get into Monday. The area of low pressure kind of moving across the prairie right now. Monday likely featuring some showers across portions of Saskatchewan, and Manitoba. The much deeper moisture, the heavier precipitation going to be down here bottom right as we head through much of the next 7 days. Now, I'll roll the European model out for 2 weeks here. We can kind of take a look at the entire pattern. And why don't I just let it play? Because you'll see these lows that kind of get flung up into British Columbia, or sometimes kind of run a little bit further south here as we get later on into the loop. Here comes one right here. This is your Monday system. Here's another one mid next week. And then we get toward the end of the loop and the pattern kind of shifts a little bit further south. So it's kind of this like incremental, slowly southward shift with the areas of low pressure. And it's not depositing a whole lot in the way of meaningful precipitation. So now let me run it back. We'll time each of these lows out, understanding that we have lower confidence the deeper we get into the forecast period. So here's your Friday, your Saturday, again, kind of focusing right in on this region. This is now Saturday night, getting into Sunday. Here comes the area of low pressure I just mentioned on the NAM model. Again, kind of moisture starved, so bring in some showers with it. This is Sunday, getting into Monday, but not a heavy rainmaker. Then we get some higher pressure on the backside of this. We're quiet then for the middle part of next week. This is Tuesday, getting into Tuesday night. Wednesday, getting into Thursday. Here comes another area of low pressure. You see it right here. Another moisture starved low. So you're not seeing, your front is right here. So the front extending back from this area of low pressure. It's a dry front though, as it moves from west to east across the prairie, not bringing a lot of moisture up here to interact with it. So again, we're at this point all the way to next week. So we've gone through to September 26th and 27th now, and I've shown you some light showers over the weekend and then a dry frontal passage as we get to the middle part of next week. So this is what I'm talking about. It's not as if the pattern is shut down. It's not terribly quiet. Here comes just some flow that's squeezing some light showers on the north side of the low that sneaks off to the south here. As again, I'm not going to drill in the details here, but this is getting into September 29th and 30th. And now we're into the middle of October, and we've seen a couple of lows pass by. And how much rain have we deposited on the prairie? Well, we've deposited a lot of it here across British Columbia as these areas of low pressure kind of get lifted in from the Pacific, and then down south, where these lows are traveling over the next 5 or 6 days, we've got some heavier precipitation. But across the prairie, you're just kind of caught in this drier void where lows are passing by, but they're moisture starved. We're not depositing a lot in the way of precipitation. The heaviest corridor you see there is, 12.5 millimeters in a very localized corridor. Maybe some heavier precipitation across the higher terrain. The Front Range there in western Alberta, you could maybe be pushing an inch. But a lot of folks here, you got the chance for some light showers at times over the next 7 to 10 days. But I don't think this is going to be anything that's really going to slow down harvest or, kind of introduce a whole lot of moisture to the area as we go through the end of September into the beginning of October. So your next 15 days, this kind of just ties it together, the European ensemble, the precipitation anomaly forecast that again runs us into the beginning of October. A lot of rain across this area that admittedly desperately needs it. I'm coming to you right here from central Illinois where, some areas around me have not seen 1/10 of an inch of precipitation. And that's just, bare bones for 2 months. And this is, not necessarily our wettest time of year, but 2 months. A long time to go without 1/10 of an inch of rain. So getting kind of scary down here with the rapid onset of the drought. So this would be some good news. But I mentioned as areas of low pressure, kind of a couple of them quickly traverse the prairie. And then as we get into, days 8 to 14, the areas of low pressure are tracking a little bit further to the south. We just don't bring a whole lot in the way of meaningful precipitation to the prairie. So those temperatures, they're warmer in the east right now, cooler in the west. We've got some areas here even flirting with the freezing mark on this Friday morning. And as we go through the next 7 days, we're going to see some warmer temperatures build in, but we do have some fronts that pass through. And I'll show you the variation here. Again, building some warmth in over the weekend. And then again, as we get into the later part of next week, and I'll show you your 10-day temperature forecast here in a moment, but just kind of showing you here, no big signs of, dramatic shot of cold air coming in over the next 2 weeks or so. If anything, the next 2 weeks leaning more mild compared to average. Now, where I'm not going to get into some specifics is, again, kind of understanding some of the uncertainty built into this forecast as we continue to watch the Pacific jet stream, specifically the northern branch there, as we see this split flow as the jet stream comes into North America. We've got this subtropical component here, and then this northern branch that continues to fling a couple of areas of low pressure through the prairie. Again, I showed you those this weekend, and then again during the middle part of next week. But we're seeing some tropical activity here across the West Pacific, and we understand that some of these typhoons that develop out here can do what's called recurve and then interrupt or interact with the jet stream here and kind of enhance the flow or alter it in one way or another. And then, of course, we know that our weather systems are coming from that direction. So a lot of uncertainty in this area over the next week gives me a lot of uncertainty then upstream as we get into what would be kind of the first 2 weeks of October. So let's leave it at a dry week ahead. Know that we've got some uncertainty then as we get into the very first week in September. As I just show you the height anomalies here, I'm kind of showing the broader picture and what's driving it after I've shown the details. And you see, again, ridging building in here predominantly over the next week as we get into the beginning of week 2 where I lose some confidence. We do see that trough across the Gulf of Alaska off the Pacific coast here with some stronger flow coming in. But right now, the storm track I showed you there south of the prairie. So this is not right now giving me high confidence that we're going to be bringing soaking rains into the prairie at any time soon. If anything, we just kind of keep this chance for some very light showers in the forecast. Now, I always like to come back to the precipitable water forecast here. I'll run it out for the next 2 weeks, and you see this one that comes in over the weekend does bring, I want to stop this and kind of run it back. It does bring in some moisture right here. This is, your Saturday and Sunday. This one's going to bring some Pacific moisture. It's going to bring those very isolated, maybe widely scattered showers and thunderstorms over the weekend. And then you see the midweek system here. This is Monday. It's coming in from British Columbia, but then that moisture makes it across the prairie with that front right here. You see the front, the drier air coming in on the backside, the moist air on the leading edge. This is just that chance here midweek for some showers. But then as you get rolling on into the deeper part of this loop, you see a lot of moisture being lobbed up into this area right here, which again I mentioned we needed. But that's a lot of dry air then coming on the backside of all of this as we get into the end of September, the beginning of October. So low confidence as we get out that far, but where I have higher confidence, which is over the next 7 to 10 days, there's not a lot to talk about in the way of precipitation across the prairie. So the probability of picking up half an inch or more of total precipitation here on the left, the probability of picking up 1 inch or more. And this is through the next 10 days, kind of finishing up the month of September. And again, where you see the deeper red shading, that's where you got that higher confidence in heavy rainfall. I mentioned this area does really need it. So we're not going to be frustrated about this missing the prairie right now, but you see you guys are in that kind of void here where we've got near zero chances here, or near zero probabilities of picking up half an inch even over the next 10 days. So fronts pass through every 3 to 4 days, but they're not bringing a lot in the way of soaking rains. This one shows who's dry over the next 10 days, the last 10 days in September, where you see the orange and the red shading. That's where you've got that, 80 to 90% chance of not picking up a half an inch or more through the last 10 days in September. Again, the wetter corridor focused here across the central and eastern United States. The other thing I want to mention here is the surface winds with the stronger areas of low pressure, being deflected off to the north in the near term. We're not seeing a lot in the way of super windy days. With each of these fronts, you'll see some breezy winds. So over the weekend, you see a little bit in the way of southerly flow in advance of this storm system. And then some stronger westerly winds come in from west to east Sunday into Monday. But we're talking about, winds 20 to 25 knots, maybe gusting 30 to 40 knots. And then we get higher pressure on the backside. You get that midweek system that comes in. You can see the swirl right there. Southerly flow in advance there. Again, we're talking about 20 to 30 knot winds, maybe gusting 30 to 40 knots. But it's going to be a little bit till we get some of the, stronger flow, some of the bigger, more defined areas of low pressure that really spin up those strong winds that can get rather gusty at times around those, more well-defined cyclones. In the near term, the next 7 to 10 days, nothing like that on the horizon. We'll finish with your temperatures. Again, I mentioned over the next 7 to 10 days, they're mild overall, but you do see some variation. Those fronts that come through and make some dramatic 1 to 2 day adjustments from a high of 27 in Alberta on Saturday down to 20 on Monday. Very similar back up to 26 on Wednesday. I do know my days. And then down to 17 on Thursday, the 25th. So you see the same thing as you kind of move from west to east across the prairie. You get these warmer days, but there are some shots of cooler air in there as well. Temperatures at times settling down into the lower single digits. No big shots of extremely cool air. So again, I mentioned some areas flirting with freezing here this morning, but not a lot in the way of, a big deep freeze showing up here as we go into the beginning of October. You make your way further to the east a bit here, Regina, those lows between 8 and 11 for the most part over the next week. This is Saskatoon. Again, you see it, some variation, but overall, these temperatures are, mild compared to late September and early October norms. Manitoba, a little further east, pattern's a little bit more delayed, so you're cooler as you go through the next couple of days. Only a high of 17 today with the clouds and the rain in the area. 17 tomorrow, up to 23 as we get to Tuesday and Wednesday. And then a shot of cooler air follows that midweek front I showed you there as we get into next week. So hope you have a wonderful weekend. We'll keep kind of watching how things are going to evolve across the North Pacific. That's going to help us get a big idea of, how things will evolve across North America during the month of October. When I talk to you again on the 26th, we'll take a look at the month of October and what things look like, and maybe even tease out the early winter outlook here. But for now, the next 10 days looks pretty darn dry across a lot of the prairie, save for a couple of folks who are going to get some scattered shower events this weekend and mid next week. Temperatures overall on the mild side, and those winds not terribly blustery. So again, second time, have a wonderful weekend. I'll talk to you again next Friday.